Non-Monogamy Help is a podcast where your questions about open, non-monogamous or polyamorous relationships are answered. Our host, Lola Phoenix, will consult a licensed therapist with over a decade of experience to address your problems. Names and locations have been changed or censored to keep your questions anonymous. You're listening to Non-Monogamy Help, the podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 164 of the Non-Monogamy Help podcast. I'm Lola Phoenix. Please send your questions to ask@nonmonogamyhelp.com and they'll either be in the podcast or the column anonymously. If you want to read the columns and listen to the podcast, you can get everything at nonmonogamy.help. Sign up to the early emails that you get on Wednesdays by going to nonmonogamyhelp.com/email. And you can follow the column and the podcast on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not really on Twitter very much, or X or whatever the fuck it's called, at Non-Monogamy Help, and on TikTok at Non-Mono-Help. If you want to be an awesome person, you can join the podcast shoutout support tier by going to nonmonogamyhelp.com/subscribe. And then I will, with your permission, read your name at the end of the podcast. All right. Let's get to this week's discussion question. If this is the first time you're hearing a podcast every week, I put forth a discussion question that you can use with your friends, partners, anyone else to get to know them a little bit more. I also try to answer it myself briefly because after all, you are here for the advice questions, but it helps give a little bit of context. This week's discussion question is another Otter Being Polyamory conversation card question. These are cool little cards that you can use similar to the discussion questions that I've put out before, and you can get them at nonmonogamyhelp.com/cards, and you get 10% off using Non-Mono-Help at checkout. So this week's discussion question is, what financial or legal arrangements are important for you to have with your partners? Financial arrangements. I do not combine finances with anybody, ever. Never, ever, ever, ever will I do that. Never. Even when I was hierarchical, even when I did live with people, even when we shared a household, we had a shared household account, which we put all the money in for rent and bills, but I do not ever want to combine finances with any person ever in my life, ever. I have a lot of feelings about that, obviously, just because I just don't think that, I mean, if I had children, maybe, but even then, I really did want to have children, but never really wanted to combine finances. I think that's because, I don't know if it's actually true, but there was a story in my family of basically combined finances, and then someone took out credit cards in somebody else's name and they declared bankruptcy before they reached the age of 30. And I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen or that I don't trust my partners, but I want my own control over my own things. And that's me. Legal arrangements, I'm not really sure about that. I'm, again, more solo polyam these days. I'm not necessarily interested in cohabitation or anything like that. But whenever I did cohabitate with people, both of our names being on documents, both, it being equal was very important to me. And I think that, if you have children, if you have any shared property, there's probably important stuff about that. I would definitely recommend it's monogamy in this economy. I'm really bad at remembering things. And I think that gives you a lot more proper information about the legal implications of living together, better than I can ever provide that, because I have no interest in it and I haven't done it. And even when I have done it, I have tried my best to maintain my own autonomy because it's very important to me. So, but I will also say, if you are in the U.S. and you are queer, especially if you're queer, everyone should have an advance directive. So please check out getting an advance directive. I really think it's important for people to think about, as much as you may not want to think about it, what happens if you die, because you are going to die. And you need to not have the people who care about you be taken advantage of by shady funeral directors and all these sorts of things that can happen. Caitlin Doty has a lot of information about advance directives. I definitely recommend you check that out. Talking about sex won't get you pregnant, and talking about death won't kill you. So please make sure that you actually have these types of things put in place so that if, something happens to you, the people who care about you don't have to guess and deal with all this stuff while they're in the middle of grieving you. So that's very important. Anyway, the question is, what financial or legal arrangements are important for you to have with your partners? Let's get to this week's question. My partner, male 40, and I, female 40, have been dating for 7 months. We both have separate nesting partners and young kids that live 2.5 hours away, although we manage to see each other about a night every 10 days. We were both in open sexual relationships before, but not polyamorous, and it feels like we've had to manage a lot of philosophical adjustments with our respective and supportive partners on top of our own new relationship energy. We are both surprised by the strength of our feelings and both feel we have gold on our hands. But now NRE is starting to fade, cracks are showing. Time management is a big thing. How far in advance should we get organized? How long should we spend together away from our nesting partners who struggle with managing kids alone? Right now, I feel like I'm not prioritized and panic when we don't have clear calendar beyond 2 to 3 weeks. I don't want to travel this much for just an evening anymore. I think I would like to have set days and phone dates, but I'm not really sure it would help. He feels like he has no time for himself, and my planning in advance is hard to maintain because he has trouble setting priorities. We started seeing each other with kids to be able to have more physical time and give our partners a break, but it's a patch, not a solution, and intimacy isn't the same. Although we've got a polycule group text and have done an event all together, it's hard to find the right posture. He feels guilty towards his nesting partner, and I feel torn by the lack of connection when we're in this setup. Communication is another hard topic. When should we message? How to keep the connection going? How to show care outside of our moments together? Right now, I feel like I have to piece information together to get his full emotional picture, that he's not a good hinge by not setting time boundaries and just disappearing. We've set up anchors like hello and good night, but it feels artificial. He admits he might be in post-autism diagnosis regression, and I admit I might try to reach for perfect Instagram relationship coach scripts. I'm autistic too, but he's so far off I have trouble getting secure. Where we are going is also hard to discuss. He says he doesn't know and just wants something simple. I need to feel some kind of agency and not so dependent on him clearing things or just processing his feelings with his partner. I want to be able to dream of what could be, dream of things we could do with each other. We can't be everything to each other, but how can we make it significant? It feels much harder than it should be, harder than any mono relationship. We're concerned we're falling into a persecutor/victim dynamics where I explain what I need. He says he'll do better, but we end up arguing, I cry, and he feels like shit. It can't go on like this, and we've entered a trial period where we want to redefine ourselves. I'm wondering what kind of tools we can use, what basic conversations should we be having, what we can set up to make it work, or maybe this was just the NRE talking. Again, thank you so much for your advice. It is much appreciated. Before we get to this week's answer, I want to quickly remind you of this episode's sponsor, BetterHelp. Quite often in a lot of my columns and podcasts, I encourage people to seek a polyamory-friendly therapist. For a lot of people looking locally for a therapist who may be supportive of polyamory can be impossible or out of their budget. BetterHelp allows you to find therapists online that you can send messages to at any time of the day, and they do also offer some financial aid. You can get 10% off your first month by using the promo code Non-Monogamy-HELP at checkout or going to betterhelp.com/Non-Monogamy-HELP. Let's get to this week's answer. I feel like I might be being a little bit harsh with your partner, but I see, and maybe this is a projection of like my own situation where I've been in this situation a lot. I've been in a fair amount, enough for me to kind of feel like I'm seeing a pattern here that's particularly frustrating for me because I've been in that pattern and I know what that's like. You're doing so much to analyze the situation and try to solve the situation and suggesting things and I'm sorry, but and please, if anyone would like to write in and correct me, I don't have children. I could be wrong here. I really think that a 40-year-old that has children absolutely does fucking know how to prioritize. Like, I'm sorry. If you have children, either his nesting partner also is carrying the emotional weight of him and managing the entire household, but he absolutely does know how to fucking prioritize. If you have children, unless you're the absolute worst parent, and I mean, I won't say anything, you know how to prioritize. If you have a job, you know how to prioritize. Like, yeah, this may be taxing. It may be taxing. Maybe he doesn't have the mental energy to be a parent, have another partner, and have a nesting partner. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's not up to it. Maybe he's not able to do that. And if he isn't, he should say so instead of just allowing you to take all of the responsibility of managing. There's this thing, I can't remember what it's called, but it's this phenomenon that happens because, and partially this was my fault, and this may be something that you're also doing, but it's like you pick up the slack from other people in relationships, the mental slack of project managing the fucking relationship, project managing the situation. And I've done it even when I'm living with people who I'm not in a relationship with. When I joined like group households, I would almost inevitably be the one who ended up managing the household finances, managing the bills, making sure the bills got paid, making sure the landlord got paid, being the liaison between the landlord and the household, And partially that was my fucking fault. Partially it was me, seeing when there's a leadership vacuum, I automatically step into it because I don't think that anyone else will, because I think, oh, I've got to do this. I just have to be the one that's in charge because nobody else is going to do it, because of my own anxiety, because of my own inability to trust other people to do the right thing. And sometimes people don't do the right thing. Sometimes you have to take responsibility because someone else won't. It's exhausting. But having to be the project manager of relationships is fucking tiring. And you shouldn't have to do that. And that's what I see here. I see you project managing this relationship. You're trying to figure out how you can, you want to enact this plan. And there isn't anything wrong with not wanting to have a plan, but you don't live lives which are conducive to that. If you were both 20-year-olds in university and you didn't have any children and the only responsibility you had was going to school, maybe you could live a life where you hooked up every other week or you occasionally went to Europe or what. I don't fucking know what rich people do. You don't live that type of life that is conducive to spontaneity. And I get the idea, we've all kind of been fed the idea of romantic spontaneity through media and that everything should be whisked away, but shit has to be planned and people have to put in the work. This is the side of relationships that is not fun, that has to happen. If things are going to happen, it's all well and good for everyone to be, oh, we love each other, blah, 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 NRE, like you said, that's all well and good. And that's very fun. But there is an aspect to relation and building relations and building community. And this isn't even only in romantic relationships. This is within all relationships. There is an aspect that involves fucking work. It involves organization and planning. And it has to be fucking reciprocal. I'm getting mad because I'm getting mad for your sake and because I've been in so many freaking situations like this, not even just romantic. I mean, it's been something that I've seen actually some posts acknowledge this about community and acknowledge this about people's unwillingness to show the fuck up. It's exhausting when you are one of the people that is willing to do the work, when you're one of the people that's willing to plan, to figure all this out mentally, to carry the mental load of managing the situations. And that's what you're doing here. All you want is for some concrete consistency, which I'm autistic too. I feel like having a routine and having a schedule is usually what we fucking like. I have very little sympathy for this guy. I'm sorry. He's 40 fucking years old. He has children. It'd be one thing if he was 20 and didn't really know what he wanted in life. He has fucking children. Come on, dude. You're just asking for a plan. And you got to be the one to make the plan. You got to be the one organizing everything. You got I'm exhausted on your behalf. Why do you have to be the one to do this all the fucking time? You shouldn't. You're yeah, he wants something simple. What he wants is someone else to take the mental and all of the psychological bearing of managing the relationship so he doesn't have to fucking do anything. And I'm sorry, yeah, he might be exhausted. Maybe he's not cut out for having multiple adult relationships. Maybe he doesn't have the mental energy for that. Maybe he doesn't have the ability to support more than one relationship, and that's fine. And then just say that instead of putting the burden all on you. He feels guilty about his nesting partner. He doesn't, and maybe he's conflict avoidant as shit. He doesn't want to deal with the feel And I see this, and all due respect, I see this a lot with men. I'm sorry, but this is what I see a lot. And there's a phenomenon of this. You talk about the second shift of women having to do fucking childcare and the cleaning when they get home after they've already worked. What about the third fucking shift of having to do the mental fucking project managing of relationships, of communities? This happens all the fucking time. It's you always end up having to be the one to manage the situation. And I think Jimmy on Relationships has talked about this. It's not that men are unwilling to help, but it's men show up and they're what do you want me to do? And they don't fucking realize that just the very task of you showing up and going, what do you want me to do? Puts me in fucking charge. I'm still the manager. I don't want to be the project manager of this shit. Oh, I'm exhausted on your behalf. But genuinely, you're trying to project manage this situation. And what you need is for him to step the fuck up. Step up and do things. Be the one to actually reciprocate. Organize things yourself without me having to be the one sitting there and planning everything. I'm sorry if you don't want to plan stuff. You're not, get good at prioritizing then, because you have more than one romantic relationship and children and a job. If you don't want to have to project manage your own freaking life, then honestly, then maybe it's not for him. Maybe he likes all the fun aspects of relationships where he gets laid and gets attention, but doesn't like to have to deal with the actual fucking mental part of it, which is planning, which is reciprocation, which is coming up with ideas of things you want, which is figuring out where you're going. Like, that's part of it. And if he doesn't want to do that, that's fine. Like, genuinely, people are fucking tired out here. I know people who have chosen monogamy not because they have a problem with their partner being attracted to others, not because they even necessarily want any time, but because they're fucking tired. Like, that's why. Like, it takes a lot of mental energy sometimes. But you know what? It takes more mental energy to be the only one that's doing this in a goddamn relationship. And it always ends up having to fall on the shoulders sometimes of women. And it's very frustrating to see. And I mean, I'm not even a woman. I'm non-binary. And that's why it made me even more mad. Because I'm like, damn it. This is a gender role I didn't ask for. Not that any woman should have to do it, but you know what I'm saying. Like, fuck's sake, man. I just think, like, it's just such a crappy excuse. Like, I'm sorry. And I get that you really like him, and that's what's preventing you from kind of seeing this for what it is. Like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to have kids. It's hard to have, and that's why I don't want kids. Because I don't want to deal with the mental energy of having to manage that. I don't want that. That's why. But he has kids now. He has kids. He has a partner. He's 40 years old. He has a job, presumably. He is good at prioritizing, or he is at least good enough. Or maybe he puts the management of his life on his partner. There are many men who do, but that's not good enough. I'm sorry he has trouble setting priorities. What he can do then is take initiative to get better at it. He can take initiative to get a carer if he needs a carer. He can take initiative to getting therapy if he needs help. He can get some life coaching. There's there's a plethora of opportunities and options he can take to get better at these things. It's not all, and I'm sorry, there's also, if childcare is an issue, you have a whole polycule text group chat. Like, there's lots of ways which he could volunteer without you having to be the one to fucking organize it. It'd be like, hey, how about our nesting partners? I don't know if both of your partners get along enough for you to have, like, you two watch the kids while the nesting partners that you have go off and have a fun time with their friends or whatnot. And then your two nesting partners stay together, watch the kids while you two have some private time. Like, there's so many options here. They say it takes a village to raise a child. And that's because, actually, in my opinion, the whole two-parent household is not very helpful. Like, I think you need more people to help raise children, because children are a lot of fucking work. That's why a lot of poorer people end up with aunties and grants and grandmas and grandpas that live with them, because it takes a lot of work. And there are lots of other options, and you shouldn't have to be the one that's organizing all of these fucking options. You shouldn't have to be the project manager. He should want to speak to you. You shouldn't, like, I totally get what you mean by it, like, feeling artificial. And you're having to take that interest in him, piece together his emotional picture. Just maybe he's in post-autism diagnosis regression. He can get help for that. Like, he is not some poor little victim who can't, he's not this sad person who can't do anything for himself. Like, I'm sorry. I would not feel satisfied with these answers. And maybe the good aspects of your relationship have been NRE, because it's fun to, like, do all the sparkly things and hook up and for everything to be new and shiny. But at the end of the day, the new and shininess fades. The new and shininess comes to an end. The newness is, and then what's left is that person willing to put in the work? So yeah, I mean, I think that it's frustrating because you are the one who is driving all the change here. You can't drive. A relationship is a two-way street, and you can't project manage him into being a better person. He has to step up. And I know how hard this is. Like, I've been in so many relationships, and this is kind of why personally I'm very hesitant to get into another one for a very long time, because being the project manager is so fucking exhausting. It's so lonely as well. Honestly, the deepest loneliness that I've ever felt has not been when I was single. It's been when I've been in a relationship and I felt like I was the only one that gave a shit about the relationship. So he says he'll do better. If he's not taking concrete steps to do better, then I think that you should nope out of this situation. Nope out of being the project manager. Do it. I'm partially tempted to tell you to do a little experiment. Don't be the first one to initiate contact. See if he initiates contact. It's so exhausting. And there also may be somewhat of a mismatch of needs here. Maybe he is fine. I've had friends, and a deep respect to them, and I mean no offense when I say this, but I've had friends who have been terrible at getting in touch with me, and it's been frustrating. And they post this thing of I can have these friends where we don't talk to each other for 5 months, and then when we talk to each other again, we pick up right back where we were. I'm not fucking like that. And that kind of stuff drives me absolutely insane. If that's fine for you, that's fine for you. I'm not like that. I don't want someone to not speak to me for 6 months and then talk to me as if nothing else. That drives me insane. I don't fucking like that. I have accepted at this point in time, because this used to absolutely, it used to crush me. But I've accepted, I've realized, and this might be beneficial for you to realize, there are certain people who are not going to, for whatever reason, it's not my fault, it's not their fault, there is no blame, but for whatever reason, they aren't communicative. They just aren't. They're not going to reach out to me, they're not going to talk to me, or they will talk to me, but they'll only talk to me once a month. And that's the level of the communication. What I've really had to learn in this life, and it has been fucking hard to learn this, is to accept people where they're at and to stop expecting any more from them. And that is really fucking hard, because I've almost ended friendships with people because I wanted them to communicate with me. I wanted there to be reciprocation in our relationship. I wanted them to reach out to me. This isn't even romantic relationships. This is friendships. And I did kind of partially have to realize that it was my own expectations that I was putting on them that they never agreed to. And that's fine. But now instead of wasting my time expecting the people who don't communicate to communicate more, I simply go, all right, that person is going to communicate to me this much. I accept that. I'm going to actually just turn my attention away from them, and I'm going to find the people who do communicate with me in the ways and with the frequency that I want. And the result of that has been very, very good. I have found people who communicate with me at the frequency that I want. I have found people who are better friends than any other friends that I have met. And that is because I haven't wasted my time expecting people who don't fucking communicate enough for me to communicate enough for me. If you're the type of person that you can go 5-10 months without ever speaking to somebody, and then you can talk to them again and everything's peachy keen, that's great. That is absolutely fine. And I do have those friends now. And it's because I don't expect any more from them, because I'm not sitting there waiting, building resentment, having that grow. I just go, okay, that person is not going to be able to communicate with me the way that I want them to. I let it go, and I instead find people that can actually give me what I want. And that has been much, much better for me by leaps and bounds than just sitting there and hoping and building resentment, because that's what this is. I feel like if you can give it one more shot, and this isn't about persecutor-victim dynamics. This is about, I need you to step the fuck up. I need you to, and you don't have to say step the fuck up. You can say, listen, I feel like I'm project managing this relationship and I'm not happy with that. I would like us to have a schedule. I would like us to have set dedicated time that we spend. So I'm going to give you 2 weeks to talk with your nesting partner, and I would like to meet again in 2 weeks, and I would like for you to come up with times in your schedule where you can fit me in, and I will come to you with times in my schedule where I can fit you in, and we will negotiate on a time that fits for us both. And I would do that. He has to bring something to the table, and if he can't, and if he won't, don't accept, oh, I find it hard. If you find it hard, then you need to find a therapist. Then the next thing for you will be to find a therapist who can help you prioritize. But I guarantee you, he is not leaving his kids at daycare or school or whatever because he can't prioritize. He can maybe I'm being harsh on him, but I'm sorry. If you have children, if you can't prioritize, then you will be in jail for neglect. You can prioritize. And I don't know what kind of, and I'm not going to judge someone. I'm not trying to do that, but you know what I mean, right? He can prioritize. He may be exhausted from prioritizing everything else, and then he just feels like he can just not, he wants a relationship where the other person doesn't expect anything from him. And that's fine. He could hire a sex worker. If he wants to have sex outside of his relationship and he wants someone who will have sex with him and pay attention to him without having to schedule his life, or someone he can call up and get some time with without having to plan it in weeks in advance, he can hire a sex worker. He can talk to a sex worker, become a regular client if that's legal where you are, and he can create a sort of relationship with them where he can just call them up if they don't have any other bookings. That's what he can do. And that's not an insult in any way. I genuinely mean that. But if he wants to be in a relationship with you, he needs to learn how to prioritize. If he wants multiple adult relationships, he has to learn how to prioritize. He has to learn how to say no. He has to learn how to assert what he wants. And he can't allow that to fall to his partners. That's not fair. So I would be really, really more direct about this in asking for what you want. And I would stop accepting the excuses of, oh, I'm bad at this. Then get better at it. Would you feel the same if you were expected to cook every single meal or plan, or like, I say this like I haven't done it, or plan all the groceries or buy takeaway? If he was just like, well, I'm not good at cooking. And instead of saying something like, I'm not so good at cooking, but why don't I get the takeaway? I'll figure out the takeaway for tonight. Like, you can be not good at cooking. This is a great example. In a household with somebody where you're in a relationship together, you don't have to become a chef. Maybe you don't want to learn how to cook. Maybe you fucking hate cooking. You can still take the mental load of buying groceries. You can still take the management of figuring out what you're going to have for dinner together for a couple nights a week instead of that falling all on one person. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can still take responsibility. You can still step in. It can still be reciprocal. Just because you don't know how to cook doesn't mean that everything, oh, well, I don't know how to cook. I'm just going to lay on the floor here like a slab of meat and then just expect me to be fed because someone else is willing to take the responsibility for that. No. Stop accepting that. I'm sorry if like me being mad on your behalf is like off-putting. I'm really not trying to be off-putting. But I've just been in this situation so many times because I don't want to have to deal with this. Like, even amongst friends, like I need reciprocal people. And that has been a very hard thing to learn. But yeah, I think that you need to ask for this. See if this is going to happen with him. And you know what's going to... I've been in this situation, so I'm like, I see what might happen. If he goes, oh, I will, I promise, I'll do better, blah, 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 and then things don't change. Again, that cycle, like I've been in that cycle. Someone says that things will be different, or they go, maybe, instead of just saying no to you. And that's the thing that's hard about situations like this. Instead of somebody who just look you straight up and be like, I'm never going to do this. They'll just be like, okay, maybe. And then you just end up waiting and just don't do that. Don't take another maybe. Ask for something basic, like give me, like, come, we'll meet again in 2 weeks. Show me, figure out times that work for you. And then we will negotiate together, but I'm not spoon feeding this anymore. Like, stop the spoon feeding, please. So yeah, I hope that helps, and good luck. Thank you for listening to episode 1. I don't know what episode it is. 164. Thank you for listening to episode 164 of Non-Monogamy Help. If you want to be awesome, you can sign up to the website and support what I do by going to nonmonogamyhelp.com/subscribe, and you can sign up to the podcast support tier. And that's really helpful. Honestly, I don't really make any money off the podcast, and sometimes I make less money. So if you enjoy this at all, like, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Just the cost of a cup of coffee per month would actually help me break even on it. That would be awesome. My current podcast shout-out supporters are Ermi, Mike Kender, and Matios Caden. If for whatever reason you can't support economically, there are other things that you can do. Subscribe to the free tier just by going to nonmonogamyhelp.com/subscribe. That just means when something comes out, you'll get a little email from the site about it. If you want to get emails before anybody else gets the podcast, like if you want to be super special, you can go to nonmonogamyhelp.com/email. And on that list, I do also send like special coupon codes, stuff like that if I have any more books, I'm going to have another book this year. But, you know, I send special stuff to that email list. You can take a screenshot of the podcast and share it to your stories. You can rate and review the podcast on iTunes and Spotify, and let me know when you've done that, because that's also super helpful. And to also let you know, if you guys are interested, I should be at this point in time when this comes out, maybe, let me double check. By the time this comes out, I should have released my course. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by all the reading that you have to do when you start out in polyamory, and whenever someone is new to polyamory, that's like always the first thing that someone says, right? It's like, hey, read for 6 months and get your polyamory PhD and then everything will be fine. But I actually very much disagree with this approach. So I have created an audio-based self-paced course for people starting off. And it just has like the fundamentals, like basic things to get started. Practical exercises, things like that. So it's not just sitting and reading and waiting. You can sign up at polyamoryfasttrack.com. Anyway, that's all for this week. You'll get a new column next Friday and another podcast episode in a fortnight. Thank you again for listening. You've been listening to Non-Monogamy Help. The music was done by Chris Albury-Jones at albury-jones.com. Thank you for listening.